Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this Tandberg Data webinar about the RDX technology, which we believe combines the best of disk and tape. Our objective on this webinar is to give you an overview of the RDX product range and show you how you can use it as a very cost-effective and reliable method to store, backup, and protect your data. My name is David Spate. I'm the Sales Director for Northern and Southern Europe. And there are two other presenters on this webinar with me today. They are Hugo Bergman, who's our product manager with global responsibility for the RDX line of products, and also Jan Hillebrands, who's one of our European pre-sales managers. Between us, we hope to be able to answer any of the questions you may have. So before we start talking about RDX, it's probably appropriate just to say a few words about Tandberg Data for those of you who may not be familiar with us. Tandberg has a long history of manufacturing excellence and innovation, and we can trace our roots back to the Tandberg radio factory, which was founded in the 1930s in Norway. In fact, this was really only a few years after IBM was founded, and it's in fact decades prior to HP or Dell or any of our other direct competitors. Tandberg Data itself was established in 1979 as a separate data division of the Tandberg radio factory. And it's also probably true to say that we turned audio tape into digital tape for the computer era. So we've been a reliable partner for more than 30 years for the IT channel. We're one of the top storage brands, and we're solely focused on small and medium-sized businesses and their needs. So one of the key things that you need to know about Tandberg Data is that we develop our own products and we build them ourselves. We own the RDX technology. We build the product in our own factory in China, and therefore you can be assured that we've got full control over the quality of the product, the supply chain, and of course the roadmap for the future of the product. Our focus is always to serve small and medium-sized customers, as these types of customers require reliable, easy-to-use products to protect their vital business data. So we know what it takes to be successful in SMB. In Europe, we've got a sales and marketing staff in all the major markets, and we run our logistics from our global headquarters in Germany. So we're truly a European-centric company working on a global level, but when you come into contact with Tandberg Data, you'll find us locally minded, friendly and responsive. And this flexibility means that you'll find us, I hope, to be a breath of fresh air if you're used to dealing with the giants in our industry. It's also true to say that over the last 30 years, we've developed a really well-distributed network of business partners. So you find us with many of the top resellers, the solution providers, systems integrators, OEMs who sell the product under their own name, and also a bunch of distributors. We also, really importantly, have a range of hardware and software alliances, and these alliances are really key to make sure that the RDX product can be seen and sold as a solution and not just a product. And most importantly, perhaps for you, Tandberg Data has a very strong emphasis on support and service for you and your customers. We offer on a worldwide basis, but regionally delivered, sales support, logistics services, and we have service and support centers in Europe where a single 00800 number is valid for all markets. So when you need help, we're there. Our motto is think global and act local. But why are we in business? Well, I guess our mission is to help customers prevent the loss of business-critical data. And the slide you see on the screen now is from some research by Kroll on Track that they did in 2010. And it really shows that there are many reasons why companies lose their data. Human error and hardware problems account for almost 60% of data loss. And I'm sure we've all probably been through situations where we've had a data loss event in the past, and you'll probably recognize one of these categories yourself. So really what we're about is building reliable storage, backup and archive solutions. And that really brings us to RDX and the reason for this webinar. Because RDX has established itself as the removable disk-based technology on a worldwide basis. It's been accepted by virtually every major OEM manufacturer in the world. You may ask why. It's really because it's especially easy for SMBs to use. It's cost-effective, it's highly reliable, and that's why hundreds of thousands of organizations rely on RDX to protect their critical business information. So that, in effect, sets the scene as to what the product is and what it does and why we're here. I'd like at this point to hand over to Hugo Bergman, who, as I said, is the Global RDX Product Manager, who's going to take you through our product range and particularly the RDX solution in more detail. So Hugo, I'll hand over to you now.
Thank you very much, David. On the next slide, you see basically the entire product range Tandberg Data is covering. So on the right-hand side, we see, or you see, our tape products. So we're offering backup solutions, tape-based solutions, and here the standard is definitely LTO. And for those LTO drives, we also offer tape automation solutions, as well as certified media for those products, all our removable devices, if you will, so tape devices, as well as what you see on the right-hand side, on the left-hand side, our RDX product portfolio, and then our disk portfolio with our AccuWall backup appliance and our DPS 2000, our NAS system. For all our products, we have service available. So first of all, I want to mention here a free of charge tech support hotline for in and out of warranty products, as well as warranty extensions are possible, and secure service, our on-site service program. And today we're going to focus in our presentation on our RDX portfolio, the RDX QuickStation as well, and here is our start point, the RDX QuickStore drive. What is RDX in general? So the idea behind RDX is really to bring two worlds together, the best of tape and the best of disk. And I think a lot of you are aware of the advantages of tape. So you can remove your data from the drive, you can store them off-site for disaster recovery purposes, you can use them for long-term data archiving, and your data are secured in a rugged cartridge design, and these are really the advantages of tape versus disk has other advantages. You have the random access to data and the high performance you get then out of disk-based system. They are quite reliable, and you can really easy use disk drives versus tape. So, and now RDX combines those two product categories in one product with the name RDX, removable disk technology, and this is what the idea, the design idea of RDX is. RDX is not a new device on the market. It's available since a bunch of years, and it's the de facto standard for single computer backups. More than 500,000 businesses backing up their data on our RDX technology meanwhile, and our technology has been adopted by really all major OEMs in the world, and also the bigger system integrators. They all sell our RDX technology as the entry-level backup device, single computer backup. And who are now customers of RDX? Who's using RDX then? Who are the ones who buying those single servers or single computers? And it's the majority is definitely SMB customers or distributed enterprises. So, and RDX is really successful in the medical sector. So pharmacies are backing up the data, or doctor surgeries onto RDX. Franchise businesses, they use it for backup, but also for data exchange. So in case you don't have a network connection in the branch office, or then you can really send your database of your warehouse system into this office location and update your system quite easily with RDX. Also trade chains, tax officers, lawyers, handicraft business, local governments, these are really customers in the SMB market space, small to mid-sized businesses. They are using RDX for a lot of good reasons. And we're going to talk about those reasons in a few minutes. So one of the key elements of the RDX drive is, or the RDX technology is, that we have a drive and we have a media. And on that drive, we have an eject button. With this eject button, obviously you can then eject the cartridge. But this eject button has a basically hidden feature or function. It can be locked by any kind of backup application, so that if you have a scheduled backup or a planned backup running in the background, that nobody can accidentally eject the data cartridge prior the backup was completed successfully. Also, it is possible then to eject after the completed backup operation automatically via backup software the data cartridge, and then a not very skilled person is able to do a media rotation for data recovery or disaster recovery purposes. Also, we do have an emergency eject on the drive. In case of a power loss and you want to get the media out, you can use a paper clip to eject the cartridge. And now we have the other key element, that's the data cartridge. So we have a drive and a media. And that's really important, because even if the media is not loaded into the drive, the backup software sees its backup target, the drive letter, if you will, under the Windows Explorer, and still thinks everything is okay and can run fine. So every scheduled backup job will then run as normal, and meanwhile you can rotate the media and put a new cartridge in. And that's the advantage over all USB direct attached external disk backup solutions. And sooner or later those solutions will fail because of this, because of a not proper working media rotation for disaster recovery purposes. The media itself, it's a media that holds a special certified notebook hard disk, and in the housing of the media will basically protect the hard disk from drops that can accidentally happen. So there are shock mounts in the cartridge itself, and the plastic material is conductive. That means in case of an electrostatic event, and everybody knows what this is, so if you walk in wintertime across a carpenter and you touch a metal device, you can feel what an electrostatic discharge is. And if that is happening to any kind of electronic device, this device will sooner or later fail. So nobody can predict that, and that's really important. Do you want to do that with your backup device? I mean, your last line of defense. If something goes wrong in your company, and that's basically the only thing you can recover then your data, your business operation, you want to be sure that you actually can do that. And with the RDX design, we simply protect also from those things that can accidentally happen, so that you can really rely on the backup you have performed and the data you stored on RDX. And then the media is keyed. So, I mean, that's something we learned in our history the last 30 years. People tend to make failures and they do things wrong. And it happens quite often, especially when you have an untrained person handling a backup device, that he basically puts in the media upside down, and then this is causing trouble for the backup to run, means the backup fails and you don't have your backup job done properly. Therefore, there's a risk that you lose data, and simply with this idea or with the key to media, we protect you from those user failures that can happen. Then there's an activity LED on the drive that we show any kind of write-read operation on with the media. And in the back, like with tapes, also we have a write-protect switch, so that can be that nobody can really overwrite accidentally data if the key is set and the data or the cartridge is write protected. So I mentioned that we do have a special qualified or a certified hard disk in use in our RDX media. And I have to say here that not all notebook disks are good enough to basically become a RDX media. And what we do is a variety of tests, and one of those tests during that media qualification is we do a drop test. We drop the cartridge from different angles, different heights, and in total we do more than 800 drops with multiple medias. And our really target is the quality goal that 99% plus X survive a drop from a meter height. What does that mean now for you? It certainly does not mean that you should play golf or tennis with the RDX media, but it's again eliminating user failures or problems that a user can basically introduce into a backup when he's handling the cartridge for the media rotation and put them offside. I mean, if you drop the cartridge, you want to be sure that the data are still protected, and that's what we can guarantee with doing this qualification test. And there are a lot of other tests we're going to do, like vibration tests, so that we can still achieve the maximum performance under some vibration conditions. And also we do climatic tests, low temperature, high temperature, this humidity without, and also we have done a dust test. And all these tests, again, does not mean that you should really use, by default, RDX in such an environment. But at the end, you never know what a customer does. You can be sure with RDX that the technology itself can tolerate those problems. Now, how is the drive now seen on a Windows system in this case? And what can you do now with it, and how can you use it? First of all, it's seen as a regular disk drive. It shows up with a drive ladder, and you can use it with any kind of backup applications that can write to a disk, or with any kind of synchronization tool or copy tool that supports disk, because it's acting like a disk with the feature of basically removability, that you can swap out the cartridge. And even the Windows Explorer can be used to simply copy data onto the RDX drive. So that's another advantage. The RDX drive with its media is really easy to use. It's a plug-and-play installation, and you can use it, if you will, by mouse click. And now some of you for sure have realized we are showing here a screenshot of a 40 gigabyte cartridge. That's one of our first cartridges we have released to the market, and it can still be used, these cartridges, in even the latest RDX technology, drive technology. So that means with RDX, there is no longer the problem that you need to migrate the data onto from existing data cartridges to newer drive generations, to newer media. So all RDX drives and media are forward and backward compatible. So there isn't a media compatibility issue at all with RDX. And what does that mean now? If you have purchased a cartridge a couple of years ago and you simply have a higher capacity demand for your data exchange, for your backup, then you simply purchase a new cartridge instead of a new drive technology plus a media. And we are pretty much following here with our capacity roadmap the existing notebook disk capacity points, with the little important piece in mind that not all disks are good enough to become a RDX media, so they definitely need to pass our qualification test, and then we are going to release the next capacity point for RDX. And the last one we released end of 2012 was a 1.5 terabyte cartridge for the RDX drive. We also have solid-state drive cartridges in case you want to really have a high-performing RDX solution. Then you can use our solid-state drive media, and we also offer a free-of-charge encryption software solution for RDX that can be downloaded from our website. So what can you do now with the RDX drive? You see on the left-hand side a home office environment with a computer with a notebook, and on the right-hand side you see an office environment. And with RDX you can quite easily implement a data synchronization process. The modern buzzword for that is cloud data seeding. So you can easily transport with RDX data from a smaller office into a data center. That's what it is, and then synchronize the data between those locations quite easily. And then you can also use, of course, RDX for your backup of the server and establish a media rotation scheme. But also what you can think about is data distribution or data collection with the RDX drive. So you can send out cartridges with data to update certain systems, or even collect data into your data center or onto a single computer. That's quite easy possible, and even unskilled person can handle those media. So we've talked about the static protection, and what you see here on that slide is a comparison RDX versus external hard disk. So we talked about the static protection, we talked about the drop protection. It's tolerating vibration of certain systems, and definitely RDX is portable. One thing I didn't mention yet is RDX can be also integrated into a server. So we have the drive also available as an internal drive, and that makes really the handling quite easy. And with all the additional features that you can use multiple cartridges, means that you can also use media spanning with RDX. So at the end, if the data don't fit to a single cartridge, you can quite easily, simply by inserting the next empty cartridge, continue with your backup job, because RDX supports, like tape drives as well, media spanning. So, and these are all features and functions of the product, and that's why we call our RDX technology or the drive a business-grade solution, versus all external hard disk solutions fail when it comes to a backup or an archiving solution. And then if we compare RDX versus entry-level tape drives, we definitely can be compared that, and we easily exceed some of the specifications the current entry-level tape drives have. So we have a capacity point in RDX given by the latest cartridge release of 1.5 terabyte versus tape drives. In my comparison here, a DAT160 and an LTO2 drive have definitely a lower capacity point. We definitely have a future roadmap, and speed-wise, RDX really reaches with the standard media 100 megabytes per second in the drive, and those entry tape technologies are pretty slow compared to RDX, and also when it comes to access time. So as soon as you basically insert a cartridge in an RDX drive, the drive is ready and you can start with the backup job. And the really most two important advantages over tape drives is we don't need to, or you don't need to worry about drive cleaning anymore. So there isn't a cleaning cartridge, and all LTO drives or DAT drives they require a cleaning from time to time, and people need to do that, and people tend to forget that. And that, at the end, will result in some problems with your backup. And with RDX, there's no need to worry about that anymore. And then it comes also to the media usage. We have basically, and it's almost unlimited, it's a specification, says it's 5,000 usage of an RDX cartridge is possible, versus the specification of a DAT drive or an LTO drive show much, much less number. So with a DAT drive, it's only 100 usages. And cost-wise, we can be also really compete with those technologies. So the drive is really a low-cost device, and even the $ per gigabyte price can compete with entry-level tape technologies. So, and basically that was my part of the presentation. What I'm going to do now, prior I hand over to Jan Hillebrand, who is our sales engineer in EMEA, I'm going to ask you, are you looking for a backup solution for virtualized environments? And I really want to encourage everybody to give me your vote. If they may be also looking for network-attached drives, RDX drives, or if they are looking for a disk-based tape or tape automation replacement. I'm going to close now the poll, and I will also publish the results. So really a high percentage of you want to see backup for virtualized environment and is looking also for network-attached drives, as well as, and you're looking for a disk-based replacement, for an existing tape solution. And Jan, I think we have here a nice solution for our customers.
Yes, it's definitely looking like that. So we'll pick it up from here, which means that following on from the explanations regarding the single drive with its media, we are now going to look at a product that has been developed as a follow-on. A product that equates pretty much to the automation concept, but in the context of the RDX, i.e. The removable disk. It follows logically that the same advantages that have been mentioned for the single drive and its media will apply and continue to apply to any product based around this technology. And the additional aspect is that of automation and of network connectivity. Especially the network connectivity will become quite important in the context of the questions surrounding virtualization. Obviously, there are no media compatibility issues, something that also follows on from what has been mentioned for the single drive. And here we now have the picture of the QuickStation for those of you who have not seen it as yet. So already we can see that fundamentally this is a 2U rack mount product which contains 8 individual RDX drives, which after can function in different configurations that we're going to get into on the following slide. But fundamentally, this kind of product should certainly appeal in environments that require more than a single backup drive, in environments that require or would like, at the very least, network connectivity for RDX technology, or quite straightforwardly as an all-out replacement for an automation product built around tape or optical media. So the 8 drives are capable of functioning in different constellations, as I indicated. Mainly the options, configuration options, consist in having the 8 drives remain independent of each other and present 8 individual targets. Now these individual targets can be individual RDX drives, so a server which would connect to one or several of these targets would see the equivalent of one or several locally attached RDX drives. The same concept of 8 individual drives also functions as an emulation. In that case, you would still have 8 individual drives, so you could connect from 8 individual servers as a maximum, but you would then see 8 individual LTO drives. So any backup software you would be running would see the equivalent of a locally attached LTO tape drive. Following on from that, you can take the entire QuickStation and configure it as one library. So here you then have a choice of 1, 2, or 4 tape drives that would be emulated inside that library, but always with an 8-slot configuration, because physically it is not possible, of course, to load more than 8 cartridges at the same time. The last configuration option attempts to combine those two concepts, the individual drive and the library emulation, by quite simply splitting the QuickStation in half, and on one half creating a tape library emulation with 4 slots and 1 or 2 tape drives, and on the other half creating 4 individual RDX drives. Okay. The whole is connected to an existing or a custom-built network over a double gigabit Ethernet port, which you can configure as an active-passive failover or an active-active load balancing port if the main context is performance optimization. Also important to mention at this juncture is that in the 8th drive configuration, it is possible to use address write to read from all 8 drives simultaneously. Okay, so it is really possible to have a maximum of 8 remote servers, each one connecting to one of the drives inside the QuickStation, and each of those will be able to work simultaneously. So when we're talking about the remote servers, this is where the virtualization concept or connection really comes in, because any and all of these remote servers addressing the QuickStation can be physical or virtual. The important distinction here with a physically attached drive or automation product is the ease with which you can address the QuickStation and any drive within it from a virtualized environment. If you're trying, for example, to back up or use a virtual machine as a backup server to a centralized device, you would need to work with passing through adapters, like in a VMware environment, for example, and the attached automation device, if it's a physical tape library, into the virtual machine. This is not always easy to accomplish. But if we're talking about a tape or ICE or disk type targets inside the QuickStation, then the only connectivity required is the network connectivity and an iSCSI initiator on the machine, virtual or physical, that will aid in the connectivity. So there are no layers, drivers, or other complications to deal with. So as a use case for the individual targets, we can envisage several different scenarios. The first one is a classical backup with a media rotation, where, for example, here you have drives A, B, C, and D being used to store various backups on a running rotation. It's also possible to use other targets for different purposes. So here, for example, we are talking about archive. So not all of the drives need to be used for regularly rotating backup. Some can be used to once every month, once every year, write one copy of the data and externalize it as a constant archive. And there is also the possibility to use the QuickStation or part of a QuickStation to exchange data. So here it is called an RNAS, but really the NAS part of this, which would consist in connecting to a target and then sharing it through an operating system, is not the only way of writing to a disk in order to later exchange the data. So if we're going back, for example, to the collection and distribution of data, and we have looked at the RDX individual drive, to do that on a smaller site, at home, in a small office, then the QuickStation could be the counterpart to this scenario, sitting in a data center or in a larger office, and making it possible to collect and load multiple cartridges coming in from multiple outlying branches or from home. So the other use case, of course, would be the library replacement, tape library replacement, or quite simply offering the equivalent of an iSCSI connected tape library. This would pick up a classical scenario where you have a tape automation product connected directly to a centralized backup server, which is collecting data from remote production machines over the network. This local connection at the entry level is typically on a SCSI or SAS cable. In some cases could also be a fiber channel. Now, instead of having an entry-level tape library, we could quite simply replace it with a QuickStation configured in a library emulation mode. Nothing changes for the backup software in this case. It will still see exactly the same type of target, i.e. a library with a certain number of slots and a certain number of tape drives inside it. What changes is quite simply that the connectivity will now be over an Ethernet connection, either directly from the backup server or by plugging the QuickStation into a switch. Like this, you could add another element of security by geographically splitting the location of your backup device from the location of the backup server, if you so wanted. And of course, the other difference is that now the backup is being written physically to RDX type media with all the advantages that these media bring in terms of forward and backward compatibility with other capacities. As an example, you can create a media pool in a tape library emulation with different RDX cartridge capacities. Nothing says that you need to have all the same capacities, even in the tape library emulation mode. So, and of course, the robustness of the media during transport, during manipulation, during handling is also an important plus at this stage. And this brings us to the end of the presentation.